Hi, I'm Tiffany Hatfield from the class of 2018 at Millbrook. Here we are doing our Red Panda talk. So I'm going to talk today about our red pandas. I started working here at the zoo in 2013 as a volunteer, and when I graduated in 2018, I was a head student curator my senior year. I still work here part-time as a seasonal staff member, helping out when our student zooies are on vacation or on break. For example, right now, since none of the zooies are at school, I'm here helping out with the staff. So we have our two red pandas in here. There's one inside, but Barry and Zhu. What's next? Oh, yeah.
Good job. Is anybody out yet? Not yet. They will.
Barry's up there.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So for my CES project, which is my culminating experience for seniors, I did mine on the red pandas and the feasibility of getting snow leopards here at the zoo. That included taking snow leopard stimulants such as feces, fur, and urine samples and introducing it to our red pandas to see if they were stressed or not. I then collected their feces and tested it for corticosterone, which is a stress hormone similar to cortisol. Based on my case study results, these guys weren't too stressed about it and they didn't really seem to mind. So feasibility, we can potentially get snow leopards here and it wouldn't affect these guys.
It's going.
Okay. Some people are saying, oh, so I'm not sure what's up.
You can refresh the page. You keep talking. So why don't we go inside?
Okay, so now we're going to go inside our red pandas exhibit and see their indoor enclosure.
And you keep talking.
So we currently have 3 pandas at the Trevor Zoo. We have 2 on exhibit. Their names are Barry and Zhu. But we also have an older male named Cyril who lives off exhibit. Cyril is currently 18 years old, so he doesn't really like to climb on the branches and the perching too much, so he lives in his own little bachelor suite. So this is our indoor enclosure. This is where the pandas get to hang out whenever they feel like it. We give them free access so they can go in and out however they please. Zhu's going in there. So this is typically where they sleep. So Zhu likes to hang out in the top space up there, and Barry typically hangs out in this nest box down below. Going. In the summer, this is typically about 70 degrees. They really like colder weather, so they like to come in here and escape the heat. So typically when you come here in the summer and it's around noon or it's in the heat of the day, usually these guys are off exhibit enjoying their AC. These guys are from colder weather temperatures or climates, so they do prefer the colder weather in the winter. They really like hanging out in the snow, and they're not really a fan of our summer heat here in New York. So this is Zhu. He's our male. They're both really interested in people right now. They're excited to get treats. So when we go outside, we're going to give them some bamboo and do some training.
She's too excited.
She's very interested.
Let's just take a look at the nest box. Why don't you step in a little further?
Yeah, no, we're, you're gonna,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tiffany, go around the other side and then. Okay.
So this is our nest box. This is where Barry likes to hang out.
Very eager for some treats.
So this is kind of Barry's little house. We have this here. It's called our nest box. This is typically where we would have a female panda create a nest where she would maybe birth her cubs. So unfortunately, we haven't had any litters from Barry, but she does like to hang out in here. We do also have our live stream cameras 24/7. We have 2 inside. We have a few inside. One is in the nest box here and one is up here, as well as one in their outdoor enclosure. So now we should head outside and go give them some treats and bamboo.
people are saying they're still having trouble seeing it, so
I think it's working now.
it's not working on my phone.
No, did you try refreshing?
Yep. All right, can you?
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. So I don't know. Somebody else said that they can't see it. I can see their comments though.
Okay.
So
That's good.
I think we got that.
All right. Go ahead, hit him with all.
Okay, so I'm going to go in and we're going to start doing some training with these guys. So we do positive reinforcement training here at the zoo. We use targets. So this here is my target. It's just a simple stick with a little squash ball on the end. So we use clicker training. The click just signifies the correct behavior. So when they touch it with their nose, I click and they get a treat. They associate the click with food, so that's how they know they did the correct behavior. With positive reinforcement training, we reward the good behavior and just ignore anything that we don't want. So if they were to, say, grab the target, we would just ignore that and we wouldn't reward it. Both of these guys are really interested in it. I've been doing this a lot here while I was a student and over the summers in my summer program. This was really fun as a student, getting to work with so many endangered species, especially these guys. So both of them are doing really well right now with training, so we'll try to see if we'll go on the stand. So over here we have a station, so we use this to try to get them to stand up on it. Hopefully someone will demonstrate.
Talk about some of the reasons why training is a good idea.
So we do training to help move the animals from one space to another if we're trying to clean it, or if they have a vet visit and we want to lock them out of a space. We also do it for enrichment, so it stimulates them and gives them something to do so that they're not bored or they have something different in their enclosure. So this is our stand. So Barry stands up on here and we can use this to palpate their stomachs so we can feel them, make sure they're not too overweight or underweight. It would also be really useful if we had a successful pregnancy. We could potentially use a portable ultrasound on these guys. Unfortunately, Barry, we think, might be infertile, as we've had successful mating behavior with two previous mates, Zhu and Cyril, but we haven't had a successful litter from Barry.
Is that normal that she would stand up on top of that?
No,
she's just so eager.
she's just really excited for treats today. Typically, she just puts her front feet on it, but she's pretty cute. So these guys are getting dried craisins or dried cranberries as treats. They really like these. They're pretty high in sugar. They get really excited for this. Typically in the wild, almost 90% of a panda's diet is made up of bamboo. Here in captivity, we give them lots of bamboo when it's available as we grow our own. So whenever it's in season, they get tons. And we also give them their other diet, which is made up of leaf eater biscuits and different fruits and vegetables every day.
We'll show that in a minute after you get their diet. So we'll show people what those biscuits look like.
Hi, Barry.
So are the craisins the best food to train them with?
Yeah, they typically respond best to craisins. We could use other fruits that they really like, maybe apples or anything else, but they really like craisins the best.
So in the wild, are they mostly vegetarian, or will they also eat some insects, things like that?
So in the wild, they're mostly vegetarian. They'll eat mostly bamboo, but they will also eat different lichen, fruits, different roots, and some other things like that. They'll also eat occasionally some different insects and grubs, but most of their diet is bamboo.
There's a question about where red pandas are from. I'm not sure if you said that yet.
We haven't done that yet. So,
Go ahead, and remember, you gotta, because we won't hear the question, so.
yeah.
Do you know who
So,
that question was from, Jess?
Kathy.
so Kathy asked where are pandas from. These guys are from southern China, so they're from kind of the Himalaya region and extending into the bamboo forests of Asia
And Nepal.
and Nepal. So lots of regions around bamboo forests, which is where these guys live in their natural habitats. These guys are really adapt to cold weather climates since they're such high in elevation, so their coat's pretty dense. It looks really soft, but it's actually pretty coarse to keep them dry, which is one of the reasons that they don't really like our summers too much, because they're from such cold climates.
Tiffany, if you can, maybe again get a picture of underneath their
Yeah, I was trying to show the paws
Yeah.
to show people how there's fur
I can try to get her to,
over. Yeah, you can get her to lift her paw up, maybe.
yeah,
We can show people how they have fur on the bottom of their feet.
she's really unbalanced. If you come from this side, maybe,
Yeah.
I'll switch sides. So they have fur on the bottom of their paw pads. This helps with traction on the ice and snow.
He thinks I have a treat.
These guys will also use their paws to climb. They actually have pseudo thumbs too, so that helps them grab onto things, like my target now. But they'll also use that to hold on to bamboo when they're eating,
Yeah, when
or
we bring the
for fruits
bamboo,
and
we'll see that
vegetables.
as well. She's a little confused from me having the camera. She thinks it might be a target.
She's very interested. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna go get their
Yeah, I
food.
think that's good for training.
They're really eager for their food, so we'll go grab some bamboo along with their diet.
I'll wait here. We can keep talking about the diet.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Why don't you take the target and leave that? I can give her some treats too. That's
A
nice.
couple of the there's another type of food that goes after these, and that's like a peppermints in the wild. And I think
their temperaments.
peppermints, yeah. You could probably just say that they. Oh shoot! Did I lock it out?
Oh no.
Sorry.
So typically in the wild, they're solo animals, so they'll live solitary lives, usually only coming together for breeding season, which is usually really short, only a few days out of the year.
Yeah, and make sure they're picture.
So I'm just bringing their food in now, and then I'll talk a little bit more about their wild habitats along with their diets. So here's their diet. This is what it looks like on a typical basis. So these big brown pieces are their leaf eater biscuits. They also have some cantaloupe and some apple today. These guys really like the sweeter fruits similar to us, so they'll prefer apples and bananas over things like kiwi or citrus. But bamboo is usually their favorite as it's part of their natural diet.
I also want to tell people about Hero at some point if someone asked, but we can.
So typically in the wild, two pandas like Barry and Zhu wouldn't live together, but they're pretty happy here together at the zoo. Being solitary, they don't really rely on a pack or anything like that. They'll just kind of eat bamboo and mostly lounge around. These guys are pretty lazy animals in general. They'll eat a lot of bamboo because it's pretty low in calories, so they need to eat a lot to consume that in order to get sufficient calories. That's another reason why here at the zoo they get another diet besides just bamboo, is to help make sure that we're giving them all the nutrition and all the vitamins and different things that they need that they might not be getting from just bamboo. That's especially true in times of the year when bamboo is scarce, which is when typically wild bamboo or wild red pandas would kind of diverge from their normal bamboo diet and eat more lichen and more roots or fruit. So we had a question about Cyril. So Cyril is our older male. He's 18 years old, so he's not super active anymore. And because these guys are mostly solitary, we wouldn't want to overcrowd the exhibit with 3 red pandas. So he lives in an off-exhibit enclosure by himself, so he's pretty happy living out his retirement. So you can kind of see here, if they grab the bamboo, how they use their wrists and their pseudo thumbs to do that. Sometimes they'll also pick up their fruit with their hands and do that too.
Yeah, you could just drop that probably.
Yeah. I was just trying to get out of the way of them.
lot of people liking everything and thanking us.
Yeah, I might just pull a little bit. She's more into the fruit right now.
So Barry's really liking her fruit. She's eating part of her diet. They were super hungry and eager to eat while we came in here. So we're glad that they're being active and they're out for our Facebook live stream.
She's picking the apples out of the...
Unfortunately, poaching and habitat loss are the main reasons for red pandas population declines in the wild. There's only about 10,000 wild adult red pandas left. So we're really happy that we have 2 of them here and that zoos like us are participating in SSP or species survival programs to help further captive populations and make sure that they're genetically diverse and stable. That being said, their population numbers are believed to have decreased by as much as 40% over the last 50 years due to massive habitat loss in their native habitats of northern Nepal, Burma, and central China. Poaching and human encroachment are also to blame as there are expanding human populations and also increased logging for livestock and livestock production. This presents a particular problem as livestock tend to eat the bamboo shoots as they come up, which leaves less food for native wildlife. Existing laws to protect the red pandas in the wild are usually inadequately enforced, and existing problems are compounded by the effects of climate change. However, reintroduction also poses a problem as specific requirements for red panda habitats are becoming harder and harder to find. But these guys are pretty happy in captivity as they don't have to worry about finding their food or worrying about that. So hopefully through species survival programs and breeding programs like ours here at the zoo, we can help further their populations and someday restore their natural habitats.
Yeah, she's doing a great job of holding on to the biscuit right now and showing his fake thumb.
So Zhu here is demonstrating his pseudo thumb and how they hold it. So it's a lot like our thumb, except it's obviously not opposable, but they can use it pretty well. So these guys are also part of the carnivore family, so they're more closely related to raccoons. You can see this in their claws and how they've got big pointy canines. They'll actually use these to eat bamboo, as bamboo is a pretty fibrous plant, so this helps them break it apart and chew it down. They'll then use their molars to grind it up to help digest. So Kathy asked about the red panda's lifespan. So typically in the wild, they may not live to be about 10, so maybe 6 or 8 would be a normal life expectancy. However, in captivity, they can live into their early to mid-teens. Cyril is one of our older pandas, and he is one of the oldest in captivity currently at 18 years old. So these guys are pretty lucky to be here. They're pretty safe. They don't have to worry about predation or finding food.
Really liking the biscuit.
Red pandas are also called firefoxes, so that's one of their nicknames or other names that they go by. The Chinese name for the red panda actually translates into firefox. So just like the internet browser, that's kind of what these guys look like, is just a fiery fox.
Maybe tell people a little bit about how they're not related to giant pandas, but they're called pandas because they have a lot of similar, their habitat and diet.
So these guys share the same name as the giant pandas, but these guys actually aren't related to bears at all. They're 2 completely distinct species. They share the name panda because of the similar region and diets that they have with giant pandas, but they're completely separate. These guys were actually discovered prior to the giant pandas, so these guys are the original pandas in a way. But due to the common similarities that people think of, they might call these guys occasionally lesser pandas, but they're completely unrelated to the bear family or giant pandas as a whole.
How do you tell these guys apart when you're looking at them?
So one of the ways we tell these guys apart is Barry has a much paler face, so she's a lot whiter. She's also much smaller than Zhu, whereas Zhu's a much darker coat coloration in his face and also his body color, and he's a little bit bigger for pandas.
And there are 2 subspecies of pandas. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are 2 different subspecies of pandas. I know that recently they were just declared 2 completely different species, I think. So they might not be subspecies anymore as they are complete different species. But the other species is a little bit bigger than these guys. They also have distinctly different markings compared to these 2. So these guys are relatively, I can't think of,
Compared?
yeah, like common in appearance.
You'll see
to,
these more at zoos than you will the other kind.
yeah, they're a little bit more popular, the smaller ones, but
There are more numbers of this day in
okay.
But you want to talk a little bit more about your CES project and what you actually did, like how you contacted those zoos and what
So-
things you did?
For my CES project, we were wondering about snow leopards and if the close proximity from our red panda to our Kia, which would be our potential snow leopard exhibit, would create any stress, and if that stress would affect any breeding programs that we've had here, or in general, whether or not our pandas would still exhibit mating behaviors. So part of my CES was looking at how to introduce the scents in a safe way. So we decided on putting the scents or the stimulants in a container and securing it to the outside of their exhibit. That way the pandas could safely smell it and see it, but they couldn't actually get to it. I did so by contacting multiple zoos across the US that have snow leopards in AZA. AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. We're one of the members, and we are really proud of that. So we contacted a couple other zoos, and I was able to go tour 2 of them with some of the staff members during my senior year. We went to the Cape May Zoo down in New Jersey, where we got to tour their snow leopard enclosure and learn about their exhibits and how they care for their leopards. That's actually the zoo we got our stimulants from. Their director, Dr. Pollock, was really generous and sent us the stimulants we needed for my study, and that's how we were able to get the stimulants. We also visited the Granby Zoo in Quebec, where we got to tour their exhibit and kind of pretend to be snow leopard keepers for a day up there, which was also a really great experience. And I'm so grateful that I got to do that at Millbrook. It's a really unique experience to be a high school senior, or a third former, as we call it at Millbrook, and get to not only experience feeding red pandas and hanging out with these guys, but also being able to go tour other zoos and see how different facilities within one organization of AZA process and deal with different species.
Eliza says she's very thankful. This is awesome. No question, but she's very
Okay.
thankful. This is awesome because she's never seen one so up close. They're always sleeping or far away. So you could say something like, we hope you see them. So, seeing them up close.
So Eliza's excited that she got to see these guys up close and personal on the camera. Typically the best time to see these guys would be early morning or maybe around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's typically when we feed these guys. They're also a lot more active in the winter or in the cooler months in the fall than they are in the summer. So that's usually the best time to see them. These guys are a crepuscular species, which means they're most active at dawn and dusk. So typically the earlier you get here, or maybe the later in the day, they'll be more active, especially in the summer when it does get really hot around noon. These guys like to go inside and sleep the heat of the day off in their AC. So that's one of the reasons that these guys are a little bit harder to see in the summer compared to some of our other species. So I would recommend coming kind of in the early morning or the later afternoon when it cools off.
Ask if anybody has questions out there.
Does anybody have questions right now? We can start answering a few.
People are saying they love it. It's awesome. Do they ever do encounters with the public?
So we had a question that says, do we ever do encounters with the public? Unfortunately, we don't. These guys are on the IUCN list of vulnerable species and listed as vulnerable, so we can't really take the public into any of our exhibits, but we are letting volunteers and our counselors come in here during the summer program. So it's open to kids who are 13 and high school aged to come in the summer and work with our animals. That's how I started working at the zoo, was in 2013 as a volunteer. And it was a really unique, awesome experience that kind of influenced me to apply and really fall in love with Millbrook School. You really get a hands-on experience, getting to feed the animals, make their diets, do enrichment, and just overall, it's an amazing experience, but currently we don't have anything open to the public for panda encounters.
But we do keeper talks. You could talk about keeper
Yeah.
talks.
We have some more questions. How many cubs do they have? 2.
Okay. Typically about 2.
You
So,
have to repeat the
You
question.
repeat the question. 'Cause
oh,
they're not-
sorry. So the question was, how large are their litters? Typically they have about 2 cubs, so not too many.
Sometimes 1, sometimes 3.
It could be 1 to 3, but the average is about 2.
And it's just once a year.
How someone's asking why they have such big paws.
So these guys have pretty large paws. One of the questions was, why is that? So this helps them with traction on the snow and the ice. It kind of works as snowshoes. It spreads their weight out a little bit more so they don't sink in as much since they're living in such a cold, extreme climate. And it also gives them more traction with their claws to help climb.
And then someone mentioned that they watch the camera all the time, but to tell other people about it. And mention it many times is what they said.
Yeah, share the live stream information.
So our live stream is at millbrook.org/Trevor Zoo live.
Yep.
So millbrook.org/Trevor Zoo live. We have our live cams in our Red Panda exhibit. They're going on 24/7. We also have live streams on our pond and on our heron nests, which hopefully we'll have some herons this year, but we're not sure. So we have a couple live streams around the zoo, but I think our pandas are probably the most popular.
How old are they and what is their lifespan? They probably missed the beginning.
So we had a question that's, how old are these guys and what's their lifespan? So Barry is currently 10 and Zhu is 7. Our oldest panda right now is Cyril. He lives off exhibit and he's 18. Typically their life expectancy in the wild would be around 10, but they could live into their mid-teens in captivity. And Cyril's one of the examples of an older panda.
Someone is asking about Red Panda weekend in September, so you could mention that we have that event in September. Watch our Facebook and we'll give more info when we get to.
So someone asked about our Red Panda event in September. So we typically do keeper talks for the Red Pandas for a whole weekend where it's kind of their time to shine. We'll do more talks and involve different Red Panda related activities. We'll also do them for some of our other species, but the Red Pandas are pretty interesting. They're my favorites personally, so that's my favorite weekend. For keeper talks, we will engage the public a little bit where we'll have a keeper come in here, feed these guys, and then talk about them.
And you can say we do that every day in the summer,
And that happens every day in the summer.
7 days a week.
So every day in the summer, 7 days a week, we'll do our Red Panda keeper talks. We'll also do other keeper talks like our lemurs, the bobcat, and a couple other species. So if you're looking to get up close and personal with maybe the bobcat or some animal that you rarely get to see, you can find those on our Facebook page. We'll usually post it when we get closer to doing them, and just look out for those.
Someone's asking, Margot Peter actually is asking how they make their nests in the wild.
So Margot asked how they make their nests in the wild. Typically they'll make nests full of leaves and branches and try to cushion it to stay warmer.
They'll also find whole dens and they'll be using.
They'll also find pre-made dens, or they'll make their own den and they'll use that. So they try to shelter their cubs and hide them as much as possible from possible predators, and just to try to keep them warm and safe.
Frisco's daughter, who's 4 years old, is asking how animals grow. I would answer that by they need food, water, sleep, and a good environment. And just like us, they get those things, they'll grow. Frisco area mom.
So
I don't know. Frisco area mom.
Frisco area mom's daughter is asking, how do pandas grow? So these guys grow, or all animals grow because they need food and water just like we do, plenty of sleep. Exercise is also pretty important, making sure they move around. But The main thing is getting a nutritious diet, which we do here at the zoo by giving them leaf eater biscuits, their fruits and vegetables, and then plenty of bamboo.
So how much would they weigh at birth, would you say? 100 grams?
They're like 500 grams.
Or 500 grams.
So these guys would typically typically be about 500 grams at birth, so they're pretty small.
And now when they're adults, they weigh?
Adult pandas typically weigh
5.6 kgs, which is about 11 pounds.
about 11 pounds.
Nina Reagan was asking how long do they care for their cubs after birth, since they're solitary, so usually about 8 years.
So Nina asked, how long do they care for their cubs after they're born? It's typically about a year, between sometimes 18 to 20 months, so a little over a year sometimes. And then the mother will usually leave them on their own, and she'll go back to living a solitary life.
A few years ago, 2 red pandas were born at the Trevor Zoo. Where are they now?
So we had a question that was a couple years ago. We had 2 cubs born here. Where are they now? So that was back in 2014. We had a litter born to our female Hope and our male Cyril. So Cyril is the father. We still have him here now. Faith was our female cub. She went off to the Denver Zoo and had a couple litters. And Mau Mau is...
I think he's in Detroit, maybe? Or
I don't actually
Battle Creek,
remember.
Michigan?
I thought he was actually at Binder Park.
I thought so too.
But he's had some offspring
We're
as
not
well.
sure.
So we're not sure where Mau Mau
You have
is.
to look it up.
We'll look it up.
But he has had some offspring.
But he's had a couple litters. So we know he's doing well, but we can't seem to remember
Yeah.
where he is currently.
I thought he didn't. No. Fishwary's mom is very excited that you answered her daughter's very excited. And Angela's asking what kind of noises they make.
So we had a question from Angela asking what kind of noises do these guys make? They do a lot of grunts and kind of low growls. So they have a very deep voice. You might not think that because of their really cute fuzzy appearance, but they can sound pretty tough when they want to be.
Laura's asking what the difference is between these and giant pandas. She said red pandas.
So we had a question from
Laura.
Laura. We had a question from Laura asking what the difference is between red pandas and giant pandas. So giant pandas are part of the bear family, so they're a lot larger. They're also a bear. These guys are more closely related to raccoons, even though they're pretty distinct from raccoons. But they're a much smaller species, and they're pretty genetically different, as they're different species completely. Their common ancestor diverged from their common ancestor a couple million years ago, so they're very different kind of in appearance and size, but really only the similarities they have is their diet of bamboo.
Angela confirmed that Mau Mau's at Binder Park. I responded to her on the feed.
So Mau Mau is in Binder, which is a zoo out in Michigan, and he's doing well.
And that's where she came from, right?
Now I'm
confused.
Yeah, now I'm worried. So let's not confuse her. Augie from LA would like to know, why are the red pandas red? I don't know that.
So Augie from LA wants to know why the red pandas are red. I'm not actually sure. That's a good question.
It probably has something to do with them blending in with their environment in the forest.
I would assume it has to do with camouflage and hiding and blending in with their environments to escape predators or hide, but I'm not 100%.
Angela Smith is asking how old this one is.
So Angela's asking how old Barry is. So Barry is 10.
And Nina asked, what are their natural predators in the wild?
So Nina asked for natural predators and what they are in the wild. Typically, these guys don't have many natural predators. Snow leopards potentially overlap with habitat ranges, which is partially why I did my CES, or my culminating experience for seniors, on that. What? Oh. So I got more treats for Barry to come over here. So potentially snow leopards could be a potential predator, but they don't really have too many. Their biggest potential threat right now is human encroachment and deforestation.
Joe said there's a lot of red mosses in the mushroom. That's all right.
Hi, Mary.
No more questions, so
Okay, we could wrap it up.
they're saying thank you.
Yeah.
Can't wait to come back. You're beautiful, thank you. Oh, Augie is back from LA. Why do they have long tails?
So we had a question from Augie in LA asking, why do these guys have long tails? These guys use their tails for balancing since they're climbing on the perching a lot. And in the wild, they would use those for balance on the bamboo or other trees.
Margaret just asked, how is Cyril?
So Margaret asked, how is Cyril? Cyril's doing really well. He's living off exhibit, so he doesn't have any perching that he has to climb on since he's getting pretty old. But he's really enjoying his quiet retirement off exhibit. He's getting lots of attention from our staff and plenty of treats every day. So he's pretty happy.
Okay, Frisco area moms, Joe, her daughter, is asking how the pandas get here.
So we had a question, how the pandas get here. So through AZA, we have species survival programs. So they're like animal matchmakers. They decide who's compatible based on genetics, who should breed with who. So based on their requests and their recommendations on breeding in different pairs, we'll typically send different pandas or different animals throughout the zoos to one another. So these guys don't come from the wild, they just come from other zoos and AZA organizations where they're born and raised in captivity. So thanks for watching our live stream. We're going to continue to do these every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So hopefully you guys will watch. We also have our live cameras in here 24/7 at millbrook.org/Trevor Zoo Live. So you guys can watch the pandas whenever you like. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you soon when this is all over and you can come visit in person.